He told me he was paying off student loans. That's why he was always short on money, why our future plans kept getting postponed. The honeymoon fund we'd promised each other was now, apparently, a responsible investment toward financial freedom. I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to. Because when you love someone, your heart fills in the blanks your logic refuses to face. But then I saw the messages, and suddenly, every loan payment made perfect sense. The first time I met Gavin Elridge, he was wearing a navy suit 2 sizes too tight and smiling like the world owed him an audience. We were both at a charity gala hosted by a local art foundation. I'd been invited by my firm's senior partner, and he claimed to be there for the networking. He wasn't rich, but he had that effortless charisma that made you believe he soon would be. He told me he worked in digital finance, startups, blockchain, the future of money. I didn't understand half of what he said, but his confidence made it sound like poetry. He asked for my number before the night ended, and within a week, we'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Long texts, late-night takeout, the kind of laughter that feels like falling into something dangerous but beautiful. He was attentive, affectionate, always talking about our future. I was cautious by nature, but Gavin made me feel safe, like he'd already planned our life together and just needed me to show up. A year later, he proposed. It was simple, no grand gestures, just the two of us on my apartment balcony, a cheap bottle of champagne, and a small silver ring. "I can't give you everything yet," he said, "but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to." I cried, not because it was perfect, but because it felt real. For a while, things were good. We moved in together, opened a joint account to save for our wedding, and even started browsing houses. Gavin was always busy, but I didn't mind. I was used to his late nights, his constant calls, his muttered financial terms over dinner. Clients in Singapore, he'd say, investors in Berlin. He was the kind of man who turned stress into ambition. Or so I thought. It started with small red flags, a receipt from an online boutique I didn't recognize, an Uber trip to a neighborhood far from his office. Once, he came home with a lipstick smudge on his shirt, a shade I didn't own. He laughed it off, said a client hugged him during a meeting. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. Then came the loan excuse. "I'm paying off my student loans," he said one evening when I questioned a large withdrawal from our shared account. "I didn't want to stress you about it." "Loans?" I asked, confused. "I thought you said they were covered when you sold your crypto shares." He hesitated, just for a second, but it was long enough. Well, turns out there were more fees, hidden ones. You know how it goes. I didn't, but he sounded convincing, and that was always his greatest skill. Weeks passed. The withdrawals continued. I tried to ignore the growing unease, but it clung to me like static. So one night, after he'd fallen asleep on the couch, I opened his laptop. It wasn't something I was proud of, but love makes you desperate for reassurance. What I found was the opposite. There were emails, dozens, with an account named Leora Photos, bank transfers. Her face appeared in the first attachment, a woman with long auburn hair posing against a white backdrop in what looked like a modeling studio. Some of the messages were businesslike. Deposit confirmed, shoot scheduled for Friday. Others were not. One line burned into my mind. "You make me feel seen, Gavin. Not like your fiancé. She just sees what you want her to." My breath caught. My chest tightened. I scrolled faster. Receipts, flights, gifts. He'd been sending her money, our money, under the label marketing expenses. I clicked one of the transfers. $2,000. Another one, $5,000. The total was more than what we'd saved for the wedding. I didn't cry, not at first. I just sat there, staring at the screen, numb. The love story I'd built in my head crumbled quietly, piece by piece. The next morning, I acted normal, made coffee, kissed his cheek, asked about his meetings. He smiled like nothing had happened. It was almost impressive, his ability to lie with such ease. I spent the next week collecting evidence, screenshots, transaction logs. I even reached out to one of his supposed clients who kindly informed me he hadn't heard from Gavin in months. Every lie led to another. Then I did something I never thought I could. I messaged her. I created a fake account, followed Leora's profile, and sent a simple message. "How do you know Gavin Elridge?" She replied within minutes. "He's my manager." Why? Manager? The word made my stomach twist. "He mentioned you two were close," I wrote. Her response came with a photo. Gavin, arm around her waist, both smiling in front of a photography backdrop. "He's amazing," she typed. "He believes in me. Said he's investing in my career because he sees potential no one else does." I felt sick. Investing. That's what he called it. The money he took from our account, the lies about student loans, the canceled honeymoon. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, planning every step of what would come next. Step 1, move the money. The next morning, I waited for Gavin to leave for work, then logged into our shared account. I transferred every last cent, the full $37,462, into my personal savings. Legally, I was a joint holder, entitled to it. I left $50 behind, enough for him to see the balance and panic. Step 2, confrontation. But not yet, not directly. That evening, I sent him a text while he was working late. "Dinner's ready when you get home. Miss you." No reply. I waited until midnight, then sent another. "Don't be too long, okay?" Still nothing. When he finally stumbled in around 2 a.m., I was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine. He smelled faintly of perfume. Not mine. "Long night?" I asked. He froze, then forced a tired smile. "Yeah, meeting ran late." "With Leora?" I said, watching him flinch at the name. His face went pale. Who?" I set my wine down and stood. "You know exactly who. The woman you've been sending thousands to. The one you're investing in." He stared at me like I'd spoken a language he didn't understand. "Amelia, it's not what you think." "Then what is it, Gavin?" I snapped. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you took our savings to fund someone else's dream, and maybe her rent, too." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "It's complicated. It's theft," I said, voice trembling. "You lied to me for months." "I was trying to help her," he said finally, his voice rising. "She's talented. She just needed a break. I thought I could manage both." "Manage?" I interrupted. "You mean manage us like separate investments?" He sighed, exasperated. "You wouldn't understand. You've always played it safe. You're practical. I needed something exciting, something real." That was it. The words that snapped the last thread holding me to him. I nodded slowly. "You're right. I don't understand. But maybe this will help." I handed him an envelope. Inside was a printed note. "Now you can finally be her sponsor." He frowned. "What's this?" "Check your bank app," I said. It took a moment. Then I watched the realization wash over his face, the way his expression twisted from confusion to horror. "Where's the money?" he demanded. "In my account," I said. "Legally mine. Joint accounts, remember?" "You can't do that," he shouted. I already did. He lunged for his phone, probably to check transfers, but I'd already locked him out of every shared login. "You played me, Gavin. You lied, manipulated, and drained what we built. I'm just reclaiming what's mine." He stared at me, seething. "You'll regret this." I almost laughed. "No, Gavin, you will." I left that night, packed my essentials, walked out without looking back. But the story didn't end there. A week later, I got a message request on Instagram from Leora. "He said you stole his money," she wrote. "He told me you were unstable." I smiled grimly. I sent her screenshots, transfers from our joint account to hers, messages where he called me distracting. I didn't add commentary. I didn't need to. The truth spoke loudly enough. She read them, didn't reply for hours. Then finally, "I didn't know. I'm sorry." 2 days later, Gavin called me from an unknown number. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Apologies, excuses, begging. It wasn't love, it was business. You have to understand. Let's fix this. Fix? There was nothing left to fix. 3 weeks later, a mutual friend from the firm told me Gavin had lost his job. Turns out, his investments weren't entirely personal. He'd been funneling company funds too. His boss found inconsistencies during an audit. Leora, apparently, had turned over proof to the authorities, maybe as self-preservation, maybe out of guilt. Either way, justice was poetic. He was arrested for embezzlement. The company pressed charges. The woman he lied to and the one he betrayed both walked away free. Months passed before I could finally breathe again. I moved into a new apartment, repainted the walls white, started fresh. Sometimes I caught myself replaying it all, the laughter, the lies, the moment the truth shattered everything I thought I knew. But here's what surprised me most. I didn't feel broken. I felt lighter, like someone had peeled away a layer of deceit that had suffocated me for too long. The money I transferred? I donated most of it to a women's legal aid foundation. The rest I used to start something new, a consulting firm helping women secure their financial independence before marriage, because trust shouldn't come at the cost of security. A few months later, I got an anonymous envelope in my office mailbox. Inside was a photo, Gavin, in a gray suit, walking out of the courthouse. On the back, in sloppy handwriting, were the words, "I guess I was the one who didn't understand." I stared at it for a long time before tossing it into the shredder. That night, I stood on my balcony, the same kind of evening where he'd once promised me forever, and whispered to the stars, "You're free now." And I was, because sometimes revenge doesn't look like destruction. It looks like peace. And peace, after lies, is the sweetest kind of victory there is.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.